Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I got the story from so many people. I couldn't begin to thank all of you who sent it, but there's a man who sawed his neighbor's garage in half because the property line ran down the middle of it and he'd had enough. And it raises a whole bunch of questions, and the ones that I think are appropriate, pertinent, and of a legal nature, I will address as I get to them. But NECN.com, which is an NBC affiliate back east, says, saw how the land lies. Main neighbors dispute leaves garage halved. Halved, halved, as in it was cut asunder into two almost equal halves. Years as a contractor prepared Gabriel Braun to use a sawzall, reciprocating saw to cut his neighbor's garage exactly in half, though he certainly never expected to do it. I've got a sawzall. I've got a bunch of stuff. I've got a chainsaw. I've got a weed whacker. I've got a power drill. But I'm here to tell you, sawzalls are fun. Chainsaws are fun too, but sawzalls, there's something about them that they're hours and hours of entertainment. Literally, the garage in Dover, Foxcroft, Maine, crossed the line years ago when it was built over a property line. Now, Braun and his neighbor had an issue over the Memorial Day weekend, and that dispute ended with Braun breaking out the sawzall. Braun had a land survey conducted back in April that showed half of the garage was actually on his property. Now, here's the deal. He apparently knew this and was willing to put up with it. And then that changed. So Braun said that there were some events over Memorial Day weekend where things were smashed and rowdiness ensued. And the episode in that garage bothered him so much that he sawed the half of the garage on his side of the land down and basically said, you know something, this is on my land, right down the property line, and sawed it with a sawzall. Braun said in an interview, he gave me a chance to repay him in unkind. And he explained to the reporters that the previous owner of the home had been friendly with him, and so he was willing to leave the garage where it was. But that man passed away, and a relation moved in that has not gotten along with him so well. And we talked about this before. If you've got property and there's a property line on it, you own the property line, your neighbor owns beyond the property line, right? Well, if somebody builds something that crosses the property line, it's on your property. But if they leave it there for a certain period of time and you don't do anything about it, they then get to own the property beneath that structure by adverse possession in many states, depending on the length of time it's been there. So if this garage had stayed there for too long, the property line would have moved to accommodate the garage. But that is not addressed here, so I don't think it had been up long enough. Braun refers to the old neighbor and says, and his name was Steve apparently, Steve was great. We all loved Steve. He was a corn dog, but we loved him anyway. He was a really nice guy. We got along perfectly well. Regarding the guy who moved in, though, a whole different character. That's the quote, a whole different character. Now, no one was at Braun's neighbor's property when the reporters went over to ask them about their thoughts on having their garage sawed in half. And no charges have been filed. As far as they can tell, no complaints have been filed either, meaning that no one's gone to the police and said, hey, someone sawed my garage in half. So we do not know whether this little argument will escalate to a court or civil matter down the road. Presumably, the guy who had half of his garage sawed off could sue the neighbor who did it. He could try. Whether he'd win or not is another thing altogether. He could also call the police and say, hey, someone just damaged my property. Again, it's unclear how he'd proceed on that, successfully or not. Now, a surveyor in the area would not confirm or deny that he was there to assess the property with the garage. He declined to comment on that or any other matter and would not refer the TV station, which is NBC 10, to the person who hired him. But there was a surveyor with knowledge who came out and checked the line. Braun says that if a court does actually find him in the wrong, he has the know-how to put another half garage back up and stands by his decision to slice it apart in what he estimates was about a 2-hour job. So if you go on the internet, you can find photographs of half the garage there. But he said, I don't really care what happens at this point. My neighborhood's been quiet for months, and that's the way we like it around here. I wake up every morning and say, wow, that's really awesome. Now, I poked around looking for some more information on this. That first story, like I said, was from NBC10, NECN.com. The Miami Herald had some stuff on this as well. And apparently, how this got in the news in the first place was that Braun posted a photograph on social media of the garage sawed in half and wrote, yes, this happened. Yes, this happened. And then he wrote, those of you who know the other guy will understand. If you're offended by this, I care very little. So there's also apparently a string in one photograph that he used to, draw the straight line with. His wife, by the way, says he took a saw to the neighbor's garage in a dispute over the boundary line after the previous owner died, and the wife of the previous owner took ownership. But again, when the dad is alive, this is a perfect place to live. As soon as that poor man passed away, the place turned to craziness and chaos. And the news did try contacting the property owner for a comment, but could not get one. So 2 land surveyors confirmed the property line exists directly through the middle of the garage. So again, no criminal charges filed and nothing else. But Braun did put up a new fence. A new fence now stands along the property line, partially blocking Braun's view of the garage. And a news organization asked about the dispute, and Braun said, please pass along the message, don't be a jerk to people. Don't be a jerk to people. So that was one of the problems, is that when Braun cut the garage in half, now he's looking at the open side of half of a garage. But he fixed that, like I said, by putting up a fence. And as we know, fences make good neighbors. I've told before, of course, the story about a neighbor I had years ago at a different location who disagreed with me on where my property line was. And he would come on my side of the line and mow the grass. So I would go on his side and mow his grass, about 3 feet over. And it was just dumb. And I've had people say, Steve, why would you do that? Why didn't you do something legal or something? I can't get too heavily into that here, but I will tell you that at that time I was married. So occasionally I had to make decisions that were more community decisions than simply my decision. I would have handled things a little differently. However, some of you will recall that story involved that man occasionally coming onto my property and hitting things that were in the ground with his lawnmower. And of course, if you asked him about that, he'd say, I think that guy's sticking those in the grass to hurt my lawnmower. But if you'd asked me back then, I would have said, wait, he's trespassing in my yard, and he's upset that he hit something in my yard when he's trespassing? I don't think he's got a right to complain about that. But I will investigate, and I'll get back with you. But no one asked me that question back then. So there you go. But it's a great story. And like I said, it involves a Sawzall. And for those of you who don't have one, I've mentioned before that when you have a hammer in your hands, the world looks like a nail. When you've got a Sawzall in your hands, it changes your worldview. It really does. And I've diced up things with a Sawzall that I never thought could be diced up. And I know people who've used Sawzalls on all kinds of things. So they're and I know Sawzall's a brand. So it's a reciprocating saw, actually. But any of them, trust me. I got one with the rechargeable battery pack on it. So you can walk around that thing anywhere. Just dice and slice to your heart's content. So there you go. Questions, comments, put them below. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. You were born an original. Don't die a copy.